The world he longed for appears when he closes his eyes. From peaceful days to difficult, tough battles, it's what he has been dreaming of for the past 17 years. At S&U convenience store, our protagonist was a cashier. His name is Gang Seol, a 25-year-old man, with little to occupy his time and his only qualifications being that he's an orphan and a nursery worker. Seol has only ever worked part-time jobs at convenience stores. He's quiet and reticent, living an ordinary life day after day. However, one thing sets him apart from others. For 17 years, he has been dreaming the same dream every night without fail. People might find dreaming the same dream for 17 years scary, but to Seol, living a shabby life in a small room without even a decent job is scarier. His dream is his unique asylum. The first time he had the dream was back when he was in the nursery. He fell into an unknown space in his dreams where cool buildings were constructed as if possessed by something. There, he met an unknown woman wearing a fox mask. Following the fox-masked woman, a huge banquet hall appeared. Everyone was wearing a mask and they were all playing a game. The masked people were happily playing when the fox-masked woman announced a newcomer. Seol was an adult in his dream, wearing unfamiliar clothes similar to theirs, as well as a mask. He excused himself to get their attention, puzzled by his attire and his adult body and voice. A man wearing a thunder mask said he was a new friend and offered him a seat. Seol knew it was a dream, but it felt like a real-life conversation. The fox-masked woman asked him what they should call him. Since everything was unreal to him, he told them his nickname, Snowman. So, from that day forward, he has been known as Snowman. The fox-masked woman told everyone to produce the game piece they would be moving themselves. A system popped up in front of him, leaving him surprised and wondering if he was also joining the game. A character choice window appeared, making him wonder if he just had to choose a character to represent his piece. However, he quickly realized it was just a dream and decided to give it a try. He chose a character with frost attributes in the role of a mage. The character immediately materialized in front of him. The Thunder Masked Man told him that, considering it was his first time playing the game, his choice was bold, but he liked it. He then asked everyone if they were ready to start and rolled the dice on the ground. This day marked the beginning of Seol's first game. The masked men, excluding him, seemed to enjoy the game as though they were accustomed to it, and the game soon came to an end. The man in the Joker mask grew furious, seeing that his characters would be annihilated at this rate, and hurried him to roll the dice, as it was his turn. He found himself wondering if he should roll the dice and choose an option. The system presented him with options. The first was to run away, the second, to set off a smoke screen, though this required mechanical engineering skills at level 1, the third, to hold down the foot of a sharp thorn using frost magic, and lastly, to convince using words within a time frame of 39 seconds, though this required intelligence level 14. He decided to select the third option. His mage lit up her wand, stabbed it into the ground, and released powerful, icy magic that attacked the enemy. The man in the crow mask shouted at him to leave the rest to him and roll the dice. Subsequently, a soldier appeared, cutting the enemy in half, who then collapsed dead on the ground. The system then reported that the Sharp Thorn Chief had been defeated, marking the end of the adventure. The woman in the fox mask announced to everyone that the adventure had concluded, and asked if they had enjoyed their time in the world of eternity. Seol was amazed to see how the fate of the pieces could change depending on luck, strategy, and choice. Given the numerous options, he realized he could create unlimited combinations of the piece attributes of jobs. The Crow Mask Man laughed joyously, expressing his disbelief over how entertaining even the trial match had been. The man in the thunder mask then asked Seol if he would be interested in partying with them the next day as well. Seol reasoned he didn't need to contemplate it deeply since it was only a dream. Regardless of the timing or the identities of the people, it didn't matter, so he agreed. From that day forward, he reveled in the world of eternity every night in the company of these unknown entities. However, no one believed him. In the nursery, one child asked him, in disbelief, how such a thing could be possible and if he dreamt the same dream every night, playing games with these mysterious people. The child then proclaimed to everyone that Seol was delusional and advised them not to associate with him. Seol relayed this tale to his friends at the nursery, but nobody believed him, though he understood that their reaction was only natural. He had become a loner, stigmatized as a liar for sharing such incredible stories. He was already introverted, struggling to adjust to life at the nursery, yet the dream continued. He lay on his bed, aware that he should shower and get ready, but he was immobilized by fatigue. It didn't matter if people didn't believe him, he just wondered if everyone had already gathered in that place, his unique refuge. That day too, he slipped into the dream without any issues. The Crow Mask Man told him he had been waiting, and the Fox Mask Woman welcomed him. She asked him to confirm if he would join them, and the Crow Mask Man questioned her, reminding her that Seol had agreed to play with them the previous day. While it was the only place he felt he belonged, he remained curious about their identities after 17 years. At one point, he even wondered if they were gods. However, he feared that uncovering the secret behind these dreams might lead to their cessation, so he never dared to ask. Instead, he met with them in his dreams and rolled the dice, laughing. That place had become his everything, for enjoying the world of eternity was of utmost importance to him. The Thunder Mask Man instructed everyone to remain silent, explaining that the snowman would embark on a solo adventure due to the great sage's previous journey. The Joker Mask Man concurred, questioning if they were truly nearing their conclusion this time. The Crow Mask Man reminded them of the exceptional creations they'd crafted until now, but noted they'd never reached ascension and suggested they should aim for it this time. Ascension, as the term implies, involves rising to the sky. It represents the ultimate adventure in the world of eternity, known as the end game. Having played in this world of eternity for 17 continuous years, he had brought numerous legendary characters to life. This achievement earned him, Gangseol or Snowman, the admiration of his peers. However, like all things, the world of eternity had an ending. That day marked the end of the trial version of the world of eternity, with an announcement declaring the initiation of official services. He wondered if this meant he'd no longer be able to experience that place in his dreams. The Crow Mask Man proposed that on this final day, they should strive to achieve ascension. He understood that the others grasped the concept, albeit vaguely. While he felt a sense of regret that this era was ending, he'd enjoyed it immensely, to the extent of memorizing the rulebook. He also believed that given more time, he could have crafted the ultimate 31st piece. This final piece would encapsulate all the growth and strategies he'd developed over 17 rigorous years. The Fox Mask Woman encouraged him not to despair over the ending of the trial version, reminding him that the official service would commence the next day, bringing their dreams to fruition. The Thunder Mask Man argued that it was high time they regained their divinity and sought revenge against those who had manipulated them. The Fox Mask Woman, however, laughed off the suggestion, teasing that the Thunder Mask Man seemed to prioritize the latter. He was often puzzled by their cryptic references to divinity and worms but decided to leave those questions unanswered. Instead, he chose to focus on his last chance to achieve ascension. Over the past 17 years, only 9 of his 30 pieces had attempted ascension. He knew this was his final opportunity to make an attempt. With that in mind, he rolled the dice, aware that the fate of everything rested on this roll. The dice halted at 1, and the system indicated that mana fluctuated during the ascension process. Milan experienced a profound shock from the mana reaction. His character, while traversing the ascension, felt a searing pain that caused him to slip on the stairs and tumble down from the ascension. Subsequently, the system displayed that Milan had failed at ascension. The woman in the fox mask informed him of his unfortunate circumstance, while the man in the crow mask reminded him that this was his 10th attempt that had ended fruitlessly. Despite the disappointment, he sat in silence, his fury driving him to declare his intent to try again. The system then posed a question: would he abandon Milan's adventure? He knew well that it wouldn't be an easy task for a man to ascend to the heavens, but he sadly observed Milan's dying figure, surrendering to the grim reality of Milan's adventure. In the end, he had failed at ascending until the final day. The system informed him that from this point forward, the adventurer Milan would chart his own course. The thrilling journey had come to a conclusion, but Milan's life was far from over. The woman behind the fox mask reassured him, stating that he had given his all, and despite only reaching the ascension stage, he had done well. The man in the crow mask concurred, affirming that among all of them, he was the only one capable of such an accomplishment. He left the table, ruminating on his unfulfilled ambition. He had hoped to break through, but sadly, his attempts were in vain. Yet, a sense of happiness pervaded, brought on by the enjoyment of the endeavor. The eternal world he had savored for 17 years concluded just like that. He wasn't ready to awaken, but upon opening his eyes, he was astonished to find himself still in that place, making him wonder if the world of eternity hadn't ended the previous day. He thought he'd never dream of that place again, so his current location confused him. Suddenly, someone shouted, "The protagonist has arrived." He immediately looked towards the source of the voice and saw masked people gathering at the entrance of the gate. The man in the thunder mask furiously ordered everyone to seize him. Then, the same man placed a piece of thunder steel on his neck and electrocuted him, causing him to cry out in pain. He was shocked, wondering why these individuals were suddenly attacking him. The masked people advanced towards him in anger, believing him to be a traitor, a human who had deceived gods, hence they felt compelled to kill him. He was surprised to hear their accusations and wondered about their meaning. Then, the Thunder Mask Man lifted him up using thunder, threatening that he would meet his end there. This made him wonder if he would perish pathetically, yet he questioned if he actually agreed with such a fate. Suddenly, a figure appeared, a man in a white mask approached them. The Thunder Mask Man identified the newcomer as Corden and asked what he was doing while levitating Seol mid-air. The others also accused Seol of deceit, but Corden suggested they might be too enraged to see clearly. Corden then urged everyone to calm down. Seol knew that Corden frequented the world of eternity and wondered if he was there to assist him. After all, Corden was one of the most influential figures there. Corden then asked the crowd how they could shed a human's blood in heaven, and if anyone wished to deal with such filth in their chambers. He suggested sending Seol back to where he belonged. But this proposal left the masked crowd surprised and irritated, questioning the logic of Corden's suggestion. In response, Corden explained that if they simply let Seol go, none of them would have to feel guilty. He asked if they had forgotten what day it was. The masked crowd fell silent, avoiding his gaze. Then, the woman in the fox mask admitted to Corden that he was right, and they were indeed starting the harvest that day. Corden declared that Seol would return to where he was supposed to be, to the land where the official service of their dream was established. There, Seol would die like a worm as a sacrifice of madness. Upon hearing this, Seol was stunned, pondering the implications of Corden's statement. The man in the thunder mask released him while the others concurred with Corden, vehemently exclaiming that they couldn't sully heaven with Seol's abhorrent blood. The Joker masked man questioned them, asking if Seol would ascend to heaven ignorant of all. The thunder masked man, with a mocking tone, informed Seol that he would perish on the earth, worm-like as he was, and so should not dare coax him into revealing how to be seen in the eyes of a god. Seol thought Corden had no intention of saving him, believing that Corden sought to inflict more pain. Yet he heard a query: had he heard of snowmen? Raising his head in confusion, he searched for the source but was told he was the only one who could hear the voice. He glanced to his side, recognizing the voice as similar to Corden's. Corden informed him that, though he knew who Seol was, there was no time for explanations. He got straight to the point. He told Seol that his old home would transform into a different world, and that day, his world and the world of eternity were expected to merge. Seol queried Corden about the reason. Corden explained that it was because the gods chose madness over faith to regain their power. Seol's trials and stories would be traded for madness, and the gods would reclaim their strength through it. Seol questioned Corden about the meaning, and Corden replied that there was only one way to save his kind. He advised Seol to embark on his final adventure, his failed ascension, and said that if Seol gathered as much madness as he could, it might help. Corden also reminded him to remember that the gods could intervene if he brought up heavenly matters. Seol challenged Corden, asking how he could do such a thing when it wasn't even a game, and he had continuously failed. Corden, however, simply approached him, wished him luck, and expressed a hope to meet again someday. Using his power, Corden lifted him and opened a portal elsewhere. Corden encouraged everyone to watch the worm squirm in his death throes. The thunder masked man warned Corden that if he spun Seol so, he would die. However, Corden lowered his hand, causing Seol to tumble into the portal. The gods watched him fall, after which Corden asked everyone if they should observe the harvesting of madness, calling the masked ones his fellow high and noble gods. Moments later, Seol landed somewhere dark, yet felt relieved that he seemed unscathed. He confirmed his suspicion that the masked people were actual gods, not mere figments of his dreams, but tangible deities. He looked around, questioning his location due to the enveloping darkness. Seeing a light and smoke, he realized he was in the world of eternity, the game from his dreams, and wondered if he was within the game. A system notification informed him that his application to the world of eternity had been completed and welcomed him to Pandaea, a name he recognized as the world setting in the world of eternity. Suddenly, a bright light emanated from the system, forcing him to shield his eyes. When he opened them, he was taken aback by the sight of a vast landscape, dominated by a crumbling tower that indicated he was indeed inside the world of eternity. The system notification alerted him that a staggering 7,900,021,232 people had also joined this world. The enormous figure left him dumbfounded, struggling to comprehend what 7.9 billion people truly represented. Then, the surroundings darkened abruptly, and people began to gradually materialize around him. The system prompted him to set his character's abilities, indicating that his first adventure would commence soon. Panic surged through him as he contemplated whether these individuals were also involuntarily dispatched to this world like him, and whether the world he was familiar with had truly merged with the world of eternity, considering the influx of his world's populace. Recalling Corden's words, he reluctantly accepted that they were true. A wave of panic washed over him when he realized that the game he had been immersed in for so long wasn't merely a figment of his imagination, but a tangible reality. Remembering how the man in the thunder mask had belittled him as a worm, he questioned whether he was indeed insignificant and whether his worldview had been skewed. Fury coursed through his veins, causing him to clench his fists tightly. He accused the gods of having been fooled by a worm, of having cheered for a worm's game, only to spurn him the moment they realized his human identity. It was their instinct to try to annihilate him. The indifference and distrust he experienced as an unsociable orphan were mirrored in the gods' behavior towards him, which wounded him deeply. If his humanity was the reason for such treatment, Then he was justified in harboring resentment towards these detestable deities. From that day forward, he resolved to hone the skills he had cultivated over the past 17 years and to improve in many more areas. The system indicated that he had completed the character setup. Swearing to himself, he vowed to evolve into the ultimate 31st piece and ascend to the lofty heights they occupied. Xiao understands that the Eternal World differs little from an RPG game board. So far, he has completed 31 games, but a key realization struck him. In this Eternal World, character setting could be deemed as crucial. Much like in reality, societal classes are determined by the wealth one is born into. This aspect holds true in the game too. Currently, Xiao finds himself blended into this reality, unable to recreate his character. Consequently, his death would mean game over. Therefore, he feels compelled to devise a character capable of reaching ascension without any unforeseen complications. In the Eternal World, he can opt for multiple classes concurrently, and he also has the option of picking the specialized form of a particular class. However, given the variety of selections, there are classes that garner more preference and some that are largely overlooked. He recollects how his experiences in other classes were heavily influenced by his companions. Now, he needs to secure victory alone, devoid of any companions. There was one class whose utility he couldn't ascertain before the trial concluded, so he decides to select that one, the Summoner, from among the mage. He chose the Shadow attribute and allocated all his stats to the Wisdom talent, including cooking and perception. The Summoner is an eclectic class that doesn't neatly fit the roles of DPS, healer, or support. The Shadow attribute is typically considered less potent throughout the game. Yet, Xiao believes that combining these two overlooked aspects might generate a unique reaction. After finalizing his nickname, he hits confirm, and the system indicates his selection as Shadow Summoner. His nickname is Snowman, and he is now poised to enter the eternal world of Pandaea. As he had anticipated, the first adventure appears to be determined randomly. The system reveals that Adventure 1 is a dance of moonlit night. It warns that the world of Pandaea brims with hidden dangers, and to avoid a senseless demise, he must learn to detect these traps. This environment is suitable for such training. Fearlessly embarking on his initial adventure, he arrives at an unidentified ruin. His task is to clear the first trial or higher in the ruins of the Forgotten Moon and claim the reward. Failure, however, results in death, and he has only 5 hours and 59 minutes remaining. Gazing upwards while contemplating the ruins of the Forgotten Moon, he recalls that it was an adventure designed for newcomers to acclimate to the eternal world. However, he also remembers that this was merely a charade, with the actual difficulty being tremendously high, and the journey marked by incessant harm. He acknowledges the ruin is trap-infested, which poses a significant disadvantage, especially given his lack of a thief-type class or a trap removal talent. Moreover, as a Shadow Summoner, he is a caster with slow movement. Having allocated all his talent stats to Wisdom, he understands that the road ahead won't be easy. It was almost to the point where, had he known his first adventure would be this location, he might have chosen a different class. Surveying the familiar scenery, he realizes that he has truly become a pawn in this dice game. As he arrives at the entrance of the ruins of the Forgotten Moon, it strikes him that he didn't perceive this while he was the one rolling the dice. But now, as a pawn himself, he feels significantly more anxious than anticipated. He noticed that there was a choice to open the door to the ruins. The first option involved the door itself, and the second was a lever, causing him to ponder which one was correct. While he was considering this, a system prompt appeared before him. It asked him what he would like to do given that the ruins door was built out of solid rock. The first option was to forcibly open the door, the second was to pull the lever to the right, the third was to pull the lever to the left. The final choice required a level 1 analysis to disarm the door's trap, as it seemed that the levers must be pulled in a specific order. This made him think that the system was subtly giving him a hint. He recalled every choice and the seemingly redundant descriptions from the rulebook. However, until now, he had been playing the trial version of the game. He had assumed that the choices would change in the official release. The silver lining was that the descriptions remained unchanged. Thus, he believed the task was feasible. He grasped the lever, reflecting on the 17 years he spent repeating the game. He had to pull the left lever first, then the right one. He manipulated the levers with the certainty that he was skilled at making correct choices. In the event of too many options, he could not wholly trust his memory, but that was the one aspect he had the most confidence in. When the door opened smoothly, he glimpsed an open passage. He ventured inside the ruins, only to have the system prompt reappear. Upon reading it, he remembered that this was the first trial of the ruins of the Forgotten Moon. He needed to progress while stepping on tiles bearing symbols in a specific order. Stepping on a wrong tile would activate a trap. He knew this was no longer a game but reality. One wrong move could mean death. Yet, having played through most of the starting roles in the World of Eternity, He was familiar with all hidden choices that could be unlocked using specific talents. What mattered most, however, were his memories. He looked up, remembering that a password had been inscribed before the trial. Lacking the talents of archaeology and divination, he couldn't decipher it at the moment. However, he was not worried, as he still remembered the essential details of the password. The lion does not share, as it is ferocious. The sheep prefers to go last, as it is docile. The benevolent moon embraces all of them, and the envious wolf follows after the lion. It might sound confusing, but it was simple wordplay. According to his memory, he would need to step on the tiles in the order of lion, wolf, moon, and sheep. Then, the pattern would repeat. As long as he maintained the order, he wouldn't get hurt. He peered at the tiles with their symbols and, with a touch of fear in his voice, announced his intent to proceed. He placed one foot on the lion tile, then slowly transferred his other foot to the wolf tile. He halted for a moment, expecting traps to spring, but they did not. A sigh of relief escaped him, and he smiled. He then quickly navigated the rest of the tiles, ensuring to follow the correct symbol order. A moment later, he arrived at the end. He looked back and thought it had been easy. The system showed that he had cleared the first trial of the ruins of the Forgotten Moon. Consequently, he could select a reward. A copper chest appeared as his prospective prize. Since he completed the trial without taking any damage, his reward was upgraded, and the copper chest transformed into an iron chest. Furthermore, he could progress further into the adventure if he chose not to claim the reward. He surmised that if he stopped there, the reward might decrease as well. Thus, he decided to forego the reward and continue onward. He proceeded to walk deeper into the ruin, aware that the ruins of the moon harbored a lesson. He must know his place. He knew that anyone who chased after a higher reward without understanding their position might meet a futile end. However, he was confident that wouldn't be an issue for him, as he had memorized this adventure thoroughly and didn't expect any mistakes. The torches lit up, revealing the second trial. He recognized this as an area that could be considered the essence of the ruins of the Forgotten Moon. This was a zone he had to clear without any tricks. To his surprise, he wondered if the place had always been this expansive. From this point onward, his experience and memory were useless because the traps activated randomly each time he traversed this place. Meanwhile, the system informed him that he could see the tiles. The first step was onto the red tile, followed by the blue, and lastly, the black tile. He had no other talents, rendering the hidden choices useless. He knew that if he had skills in mechanical engineering or trap removal, he would have been able to dodge the traps, but he lacked these skills. Suddenly, he noticed his reflection on the wall. The black line etched into his neck, resembling a choker, was a scar left behind by the Thunder Mask Man. In anger, he called them scumbags, swearing they would meet again. He cautiously placed his foot on the red tile, tentatively stepping on it while hoping that the order he remembered was correct. When he realized that the red tile was safe, he focused on the remaining tiles and moved his foot onto the blue tile. Suddenly, a trap activated, striking his arm and causing him to shout in pain. He glanced at his side, still in pain, and saw the holes in the wall, sources of the traps. Despite the pain, he managed to laugh, remarking that things were becoming interesting. A moment later, he stepped on the black tile, triggering a trap that struck him in the leg. Shaking in pain, he cursed the cruel gods who'd set the traps. In his anger, he wondered if they truly had to make the red tiles the correct ones 4 times consecutively. Each time he was hit, the pain was so intense that he felt as if he might faint. He looked forward, noticing that the upcoming set of tiles was colored red, blue, and black. Given that the red tiles had been the correct choice so far, he opted for blue this time. Stepping onto the blue tile, he was instantly surrounded by an unpredictable upheaval of the ruins. Comments popped up, mocking his choice and informing him with gleeful schadenfreude that blue wasn't the correct answer. He realized that even the smallest of mistakes could result in his being crushed by the falling ceiling. As he gazed ahead at the tiles, the commentators continued their relentless jeering, declaring him doomed. He took a deep breath, attempting to regain his composure despite the surrounding chaos. A commenter suggested that he feign madness and make a desperate dash for safety. If he didn't quicken his pace, he'd be flattened. Ignoring the advice, he leapt onto the next red tile and continued his brisk pace, focusing on the pattern of the tiles. His strategy of constantly stepping on the tiles seemed to confuse some spectators, who questioned his sudden progress. Yet, he carried on, a triumphant smile crossing his face as he completed his analysis. If his memory served him correctly, the traps were designed to repeat the correct tile in sets of 5. Once he saw through their pattern, they became insignificant. Upon reaching the end, the divine commentators were furious, accusing him of seeing through their ruse and chiding him to continue playing their game just a little longer. He took a moment to catch his breath as the gods argued among themselves, questioning the repeating pattern and criticizing the lackadaisical god who'd made the traps. The system informed him that he had successfully cleared the second trial. His reward was a silver box, but since he had activated fewer than 10 traps, his prize was upgraded to a gold box. The gold box appeared before him, the system informing him that once he selected his reward, he could conclude his adventure. In spite of his pain, he saw that he could escape the adventure by claiming his reward. Yet, he clenched his fist and rejected the prize, determined to press on. The gods questioned his sanity, wondering if he enjoyed the pain or had simply lost his mind. They pointed out the bruising where he'd been struck earlier and mocked him for his perceived madness. A moment later, he stopped and looked at the object in front of him, knowing that once he opened that door, he would arrive at the Plaza of the Moon. On the door, he remembered the words inscribed, "Do not be arrogant. Know your place, be humble." This made him suspect that the scoundrel must be inside. The system presented him with a choice. The first option was to ignore the warning and continue, potentially proving himself. The second was to acknowledge his place and retreat. He raised his hand and placed it on the door, declaring that he had never chosen the second option. As he pushed the door open, it gradually released smoke, revealing a massive knight armed with a huge sword, kneeling on the ground. The commentators alerted everyone that there was something unusual about the newcomer. The knight gazed at him in anger, slowly rose to his feet, labeled him arrogant, and pointed the huge sword at him, demanding to know how he dared to set foot in that sacred place. He threatened to take his head, but Seol merely smiled, telling the knight that it had been a while and addressed him as the Moonlight Knight, Kaluna. He remembered that one of the gods had thrown the dice away in frustration, questioning what on earth was wrong with that Kaluna, how they could possibly defeat him, whether this was supposed to be a tutorial event, and if they had chosen the correct difficulty. They had been assured that the game merely required them to toss a dice and enjoy, but he looked at Kaluna while holding the dice, remembering that during their initial attempts, they were at a loss on how to handle such a beast. He knew of the Dance of the Moonlit Night, the event that occurs as one progresses to the end of the Temple of the Forgotten Moon. Its stage was the Plaza of the Moon, equipped with safety zones that could be used to dodge Kaluna's attacks. However, Kaluna lunged at him, making him gasp in surprise. He managed to sidestep the attack, recalling that there was no reliable way to reach a safety zone. If Kaluna landed even a single blow, they would be incinerated by the moonlight. This was a horrifying segment with a boss monster that had an instant death pattern. In the early days following its release, many were killed by Kaluna's moonlight as they rushed in, arrogantly claiming it was simple. Then, the system appeared beside him, showing several tiles in front of him. The first option was to step on the tile with a black sheep, the second was to step on the tile with a black wolf, the third was to step on the tile with a black moon, the fourth was to step on the tile with a black lion, and finally, the option to step on the tile with the red sheep. This made him realize that these tiles were his only means of navigating through that section. He knows that the various tiles he has encountered so far are crucial, with the sequence and colors of these tiles being key to navigating the Dance of the Moonlit Night. The order matches that of the initial tile traps, and it will remain effective until he exits the Temple of the Moon. As Kaluna lunges towards him once more, he instinctively jumps, landing on the red lion tile, knowing it's the first in the sequence. He is aware that each color plays a unique role. The red tiles reduce the moonlight surrounding Kaluna, slowing his movements and weakening the barrier protecting him as the moonlight diminishes. Without delay, he steps onto the red wolf and red moon tiles. As he does this, Kaluna launches an attack at him, surprised when he feels something. He strikes at him, but he dodges, noticing that Kaluna has indeed slowed down. Knowing the effects of the red tiles can only stack up to 3 times, he swiftly leaps onto the black sheep tile, pressing it down while Kaluna is before him. Suddenly, a fireball appears behind him, striking him from behind. The black tiles activate a device that harms Kaluna. However, their use also charges his moonlight, necessitating the use of red tiles once more to reduce Kaluna's moonlight before inflicting further damage. This is why he first stepped on the red tiles, weakening Kaluna's barrier before stepping on a black one. Yet, whether in the present or the past, he knows that Kaluna won't be defeated easily. Clutching his sword tightly, Kaluna accuses him of resorting to petty tricks. He merely smiles, clutching a tree branch and noting Kaluna's stance, it's the deadly moonlight slash. He swings her sword at him, unleashing a force so sharp and powerful that it destroys everything it hits. The commentators can hardly believe this is a tutorial adventure and question its excessive difficulty. However, some argue that there's an option for one to claim a reward and exit midway. It was Snowman's choice to enter, but they are astounded when they see he survived. Seol knows that by infusing himself with moonlight, he can defend against the attack. More precisely, this is accomplished by stepping on a blue tile, a fact that leaves the commentators in disbelief. He jumps backward as the commentator informs everyone that he is the first to reach this final trial. Stepping on the red tile once more to diminish Kaluna's moonlight, he sees him frustration as he screams that he will be judged. He smiles victoriously, remembering someone questioning his extreme determination, which prompts him to reflect on his motivations. The Thunder Mask Man comments on his current undertaking, remarking on his decision to clear Kaluna's Dance of the Moonlit Night. He mentions their surprise at discovering that Kaluna slows down after stepping on the red tiles 3 times. This led them to devise a strategy of avoidance rather than direct confrontation. Even when they step on the black tiles, the damage inflicted on Kaluna is minor, yet it triggers her deadly moonlight slash. Moreover, it is risky if all their pieces are eliminated. What then would be the point? He responds simply, "It's necessary," just as a powerful fireball hits Kaluna in the face while he steps on the black sheep tile, confident in his approach. A moment later, Kaluna's armor was slowly breaking. Despite this, Kaluna still tried to stand up and furiously told his adversary not to disturb the moonlight. However, when he stepped on the tile again, Kaluna felt a surge of pain. Ignoring Kaluna's angry protestations, Seol focused on the correct order of the tiles. Stepping on the black sheep symbol, Seol released a fireball. It struck Kaluna's armor, causing it to shatter and expose his shoulder. Still, Kaluna held his ground, questioning Seol's need for such intensity. The system indicated to Seol that the Moonlight Knight, Kaluna, was being battered by moonlight. He was taking continuous damage. His agility increased by 10% every 5 seconds, a condition that would persist until Seol was defeated. Kaluna prepared himself, and Seol realized that without Kaluna's moonlight slash pattern 1, Kaluna wouldn't be so infamous. Kaluna released a powerful force through his sword, leaping towards Seol while shouting a death threat. Seol noticed Kaluna's ruthless speed, but he also knew he could slow Kaluna down by swiftly stepping on the red stepping stone and quickly shielding with the blue stepping stone. Seol suggested to Kaluna that they should conclude their battle. Kaluna, however, retorted with an angry demand for humility. As Kaluna swung his sword at Seol, Seol noticed that this was Kaluna's final pattern. The moonlight slash pattern was back. Seol understood that Kaluna's attack would likely be fatal if he were struck and scorched by the moonlight, but he could also pile on the damage to Kaluna with a simple stepping stone strategy. Laughing, he danced across the tiles, realizing that this was indeed the dance of Moon Knight. When Seol stepped on the black sheep tile, Kaluna tried to strike him down while saying something to his master. However, Kaluna was surprised when a fireball flew towards him, hitting him squarely in the face. His helmet was destroyed, revealing his head. Seol observed Kaluna gasping in pain and regretfully informed his master that he had failed the mission. Just as Kaluna was about to apologize to his master, another fireball struck him. This final fireball spelled the end for the Night of Moonlight. The system informed Seol that he had breached the last gate of the ruins of the Forgotten Moon. His reward for defeating Kaluna was the Moon Chest. As before, he knew that once he selected the reward, his adventure would end. Additionally, he earned a new nickname, One Who Dropped the Moon. Recalling a question from Thunder Mask Man about why he had pushed so hard, Seol responded that dodging Kaluna wasn't the best choice. He knew that his strategy was the superior one and that he could justify his actions later. He rested his hand on the lifeless body of Kaluna, considering his reasons for needing to defeat Kaluna right then. With a smile, he uttered the word surf. Then, a black shadow emerged from beneath Kaluna's body. The system informed him that he had used Shadow Summon. A moment later, the system showed that he had succeeded in summoning the shadow of the Moonlight Knight, Kaluna. However, Kaluna's shadow failed to clone Moonlight Slash because the summoned shadow's grade was too low. High Wisdom could assist this ability, so Moonlight Slash deteriorated into Full Moon Slash. Due to its low grade, the summon exerted only 20% of the original's power. Kaluna's shadow then looked at him sadly. The commentator, named Ah, donated 100 madness to him, and others were surprised that he did well. They couldn't believe that he was a newbie. The profile of Moonlight Knight Kaluna's shadow popped up, showing him that Kaluna didn't have a nickname and his class is Hero. His tribe was Shadow, and he was at level 1 with an HP of 240, an MP of 140, 0 retained stats, a strength of 22, agility of 20, vitality of 24, intelligence of 14, wisdom of 14, willpower of 18, and talents of dignity 1 and guard 1. He looked at him closely and thought that he was pretty good. Although Kaluna's ability had deteriorated to 20%, he had gained a hero class summon at grade 10. Such summons are usually of the rare class. Still, that harvest was no different from securing definite survival. He thought that shadow summoning was one of the few arts with very generous conditions. He knew that he met the summons conditions as long as he defeated the opponent and it had a shadow. He then opened the moon's chest. The system showed him many level ups and pieces of equipment, so his profile was upgraded to the new title, One Who Dropped the Moon. He was level 3, with an HP of 120, an MP of 200, and retained stats of 8. His strength was 10, agility was 10, vitality was 12, intelligence was 12, wisdom was 22 plus 4, willpower was 12, and his talent and skills were the same. However, his shadow space was 400 over 850. This made him realize that if he leveled up in the world of eternity, he would be given 4 circulating stats and 4 fixed stats. Depending on the job, the fixed stat would grow in a fixed way. Thus, he planned to invest the rest of the retained stats in wisdom because a shadow summoner must increase wisdom at all costs. Aside from the stats, the other useful reward was the fixed drop item of the Moonlight Sword that he could get when defeating Kaluna. He thought he must give this to his shadow, Kaluna. Then, he gave the Moonlight Sword to Kaluna, knowing that the summons of shadow summoners are characterized by their ability to grow independently and equip items. He looked at Kaluna, who was holding the sword, while thinking that in other jobs, the summoner leads the growth of the summons through their power, while the summons of a shadow summoner grow independently. This meant each summon needed its own investment. Even though it would cost quite a bit, he knew it would certainly be worth it in the long run. Moreover, he was glad that he got the staff with the wisdom stats he needed. It was called Full Moon Staff. Its grade was rare, its recommended level was 1/8, its attack power was 22, its durability was 32, and its weight was 0.8 kilograms. The description stated it was a staff imbued with the energy of the sacred moon. It was rather heavy, but its basic stat was Wisdom plus 10, and its special stat was that all its stats increased by 5% at night. He also purchased a lottery ticket for an item he hadn't even anticipated, the Seed of the Moon. Its grade was unique, its recommended level was 1/5, and it weighed just 0.1 kilograms. Its special attribute allowed for diverse consumption methods, and it harbored an unknown effect. This led him to believe that consuming it would surely be beneficial. Furthermore, he knew of a method to enhance this item's performance. He then reviewed his title, acknowledging its vaguely defined special effect. However, he reasoned it was acceptable as if it also applied to Kaluna, it would simply upgrade their specifications. He informed Kaluna that their inspection had concluded, with promising results, and they should proceed to their next challenge immediately. Thereafter, they were transported to their second adventure, 5 Amicable Brothers. In the harsh, pointed stone mountains of Pandaea, within the Eternal World, resided a tribe of grotesque trolls. This was the Rock Canine Tribe, a society that elected its leader through a unique process, and sustained their tribe similarly. Their current chief was Jamma the Tyrant. His mission: weaken the Rock Canine tribe using any possible methods and eliminate at least one tribal leader. The system also informed him that failure to accomplish the objective within the remaining 20 hours and 47 minutes would result in his death. He surveyed his surroundings, realizing it was around midday. He speculated that by the following morning, he should reach the designated safe zone. However, unless under exceptional circumstances, they were entitled to a rest after every 2 adventures. He recognized that their current quest was 5 brothers. Considering he had 5 targets, he expected numerous variables to play a role. Given its difficulty, the sharp stone mountains might not be high, but their rugged terrain presented an obstacle. Additionally, there were several guards to consider, which would slow their ascent. Taking the mission's difficulty into account, he was puzzled by the absence of a 5-member party, especially knowing there was a time constraint. He then checked the time, surprised by the discrepancy. He recalled that during the Dance of the Night Moon, they were allotted exactly 6 hours. This time, however, they were given a rather disorganized time limit, leading him to question the inconsistency. Suddenly, a red system alert materialized overhead, followed closely by a blue one. The successive alert startled him as he discovered the 4 players who were supposed to accompany him were now deceased. Commentators expressed their shock, predicting his imminent demise. A moment later, he arrived at the guard post on the border of the mountain range. He saw a green flag hanging in midair. He knew that the Rock Canine tribe only used green flags on special occasions, raising them as a plea for blessings from Tancred, the Earth Dragon, during the Harvest Festival. However, he noticed that the surroundings were no different from those of the lowest class of the Rock Canine tribe. Stepping out from his hiding spot, he saw numerous corpses impaled by huge sticks, confirming that a battle had taken place there. Examining the attire of the deceased, he discerned their party composition: 1 priest, 2 guards, and 1 archer. He knew that it was a decent team setup, so if they had possessed the proper knowledge, they might have prevailed. If they had survived, they would have had various attack options. He gripped his staff tightly, resolving to put aside these thoughts. There was no point in crying over spilled milk, and as he was alone, he had to come up with the best possible strategy given his situation. Unfortunately, his options were limited, so he intended to apply the most feasible method. A system notification appeared, informing him that he had arrived at the Rock Canine's village. It asked him what his next move would be. The choices were as follows. First, attack the houses of the Rock Canine tribe in order, starting from the bottom. Second, wait until nightfall. And lastly, search the area to gather information. A timer showed he had only 20 hours and 39 minutes remaining. Swearing to overcome this challenge alone, he vowed to secure the highest reward, knowing that the world of eternity produces different outcomes depending on the strategies employed. In other words, the actions of the individuals shape the world. If his method was successful, it would make history in the world of eternity. He then ventured into the forest, contemplating the first option as he walked. There was no need to elaborate on the inherent dangers of that choice, and summoning Kaluna wouldn't reduce the risk significantly. Pondering the second option, he realized that although night raids were advantageous, they were futile if one was alone, like himself. Therefore, he opted for the third choice, to scout the area and gather information. The most crucial data he needed concerned the exiles of the Rock Canine tribe. In total, there were 5 towering mountain peaks. The highest one housed the Rock Canine tribe, while the other peaks were occupied by various creatures. However, that didn't imply that the enemies of the Rock Canine tribe were in a prominent place. Instead, minor characters with insignificant stories occupied these peaks one by one. This setup was a crucial element in the 5 Amicable Brothers adventure. Then, he planned to start with the hidden key of that adventure, which was the exiles. He remembered it was said that they were hiding somewhere at the lowest peak, residing there because they had been exiled from the Rock Canine tribe for some reason. He looked around tiredly, certain they were near. Suddenly, he hit a bell, causing it to ring loudly. Looking down, he saw it tied to a tree. He noticed that the bells were quite loud for their sizes, and he surmised they probably used magic on the bells to amplify their alarm, signifying their proximity. Suddenly, someone shouted, "Human." Surprising him, someone from the bush asked his identity, but he walked past the bells, prompting someone to fearfully tell him not to come closer. He reassured them that he wasn't dangerous, but the other party stutteringly asked him if he was human. He looked at a house nearby, wondering if that someone was hiding there. As he walked closer to the bush, the other party panicked and reminded him that they had told him not to come closer. He assured them he had no bad intentions, but they shouted, accusing him of being a liar and claiming that the Rock Canine must have sent him. They then asked what he was going to do, while the system displayed that the Forsaken One was afraid of him. The system then asked what he would like to do, presenting him with options. He asked why they were telling him not to come closer and whether there was a problem with it, but they just told him to stay away. After a moment of silence, he asked if they were ill, causing them to react with surprise. However, the truth was, he already knew they were ill. He simply needed to respond in a way they wanted him to. The Forsaken One emerged from the bush, explaining that their wounds were a result of their contagious illness, and it would be best for him to keep his distance. They then stutteringly warned him not to make them reveal more. The system showed that the Forsaken One was ill and asked him what he would like to do, presenting him with options. However, he simply told the Forsaken One that he wanted to learn more about them, as that was the reason for his journey. The Forsaken One asked if he was insane, cautioning that he would get infected if he got closer. However, he replied that if he didn't get closer, he wouldn't be able to hear them. The Forsaken One was taken aback by his answer and asked what he wanted to hear. He replied, "Anything and everything you want to say." The Forsaken One fell silent for a moment, looking at him before turning around. They suggested it would be better to talk inside, offering him to follow but refusing to take responsibility for any consequences. Meanwhile, the system showed that the Forsaken One had lowered their guard. He replied that it was alright and followed the Forsaken One, as comments of panic popped up continuously, questioning his actions. A moment later, they arrived at the Forsaken house. Scattered around were a variety of herbs and books. He asked why he had books, and the Forsaken One simply countered with a question of his own, "Is it weird?" Sial replied that it wasn't. The Forsaken One then offered tea, warning him that it wasn't the best but that he could serve herbal tea instead. Sial said he'd love to have some, but he was keen to hear the Forsaken One's story first. Awkwardly, the Forsaken One asked if Sial would mind hearing a bit about himself. Sial encouraged him to proceed. The Forsaken One confessed that his story wasn't much, but it revolved around an endemic disease that had originated from the steep, rocky mountains. One generation after another, many trolls died, leading the inhabitants of the Rock Canine tribe to enact a rule to prevent the spread of the horrific disease. Those who contracted it were exiled from the tribe and villages. He asked if the Forsaken One had been exiled as well. He replied that he hadn't, but his mother had, all while she was still pregnant with him. His mother had begged for him to be born within the tribe, but her pleas fell on deaf ears as the predecessors feared that the child might propagate the disease. He further explained that they didn't know if this fear was justified at the time. Even though a child could indeed be born with the disease, his mother resented the tribe, even in deaf. She had expressed a wish for everything to disappear. When he asked for clarification on what his mother meant by everything, the Forsaken One replied, "The Rock Canine tribe, the disease, and me." He then asked if the disease was incurable. The Forsaken One explained that his reading of books was motivated by a desire to understand the disease better. He had used sorcery to learn human language, read a wide range of books, and research the endemic disease from which he suffered. He stated that the disease wasn't incurable, and if he could find the necessary ingredients, he could treat it. The ingredient he needed was a corpse finger mushroom, which grew in the mountains. However, Seol informed the Forsaken One that he had been unable to find it. The Forsaken One agreed, saying the issue lay within his bones. The further the disease spread, the more he could feel its effects in his bones. It had gotten to the point where he couldn't even scale the cliffs. To his surprise, Seol offered to search for the mushroom. Startled, the Forsaken One questioned why he would do that. He simply smiled, recalling the intertwined problems of the rock canine tribe. The trolls, the disease, and everything else. He knew he could save the Forsaken One, the troll. He then suggested that they make a small deal. A few moments later, he was sprinting up the mountain, scanning his surroundings. However, before this, the Forsaken One had placed his hand on the ground, bowed his head to him, and told him that if he managed to find those specific mushrooms, they would assist him in any way possible. The system notification revealed his adventure to one, entitled Forsaken One. After thorough research, it was discovered that the Banished One required a corpse finger mushroom, which grows on the cliffs of the Sharp Stone Mountains, to combat an endemic disease. If he could find and deliver this item, the Banished One promised his aid. His mission, to locate the corpse finger mushroom and deliver it within a remaining time frame of 10 hours and 59 minutes. As he navigated the mountainous terrain, he realized that the side quest, Forsaken One, was particularly special as it added a helper non-player character to his team. This helper would provide assistance, with the level of enthusiasm proportional to the rapport he had built with them. He remembered the Forsaken One being a highly ranked helper. Although every second was crucial in this adventure, he knew the time spent on this side quest wouldn't be wasted. More so, he realized that if he could recruit the Forsaken One as his helper, he could potentially reverse any dire situation. A moment later, the sun was setting, and he found himself gasping for breath from his relentless running. The audience watching him sympathized as they noticed his current predicament. They warned him of his bleak future if he failed to find the mushroom, pleading with him not to meet his end there. He moved towards the cliff, listening to one commenter remark that his failure was inevitable, considering that the progress party of the youngest of the 5 Magata brothers was also failing. Peering down at the cliff, he activated his perception ability. The system notified him that he was in the cliff area that the Forsaken One had mentioned. However, the corpse finger mushroom was nowhere in sight. The system then asked him his next course of action, providing him with an array of choices. Exhausted, he sat on the ground. The audience wondered if he had given up, their cries echoing in the background. He then recalled his first experience in this world of eternity 17 years ago. He had been a caster back then as well and had hurriedly rushed to the cliff in sheer joy after discovering the Forsaken One side quest. At that time, he didn't know that his dream would span 17 years. Every day, he had given his best, expressing his fervent passion. Yet, due to his inexperience in controlling his character, he had failed, reducing his avatar to mere fragments. The cause of death for his first character had been a loss of footing while searching for the mushroom during the Forsaken One side quest. It might have seemed like a ridiculous reason, but it was inevitable. A caster, being a class with limited strength and agility, wasn't suited for item searches requiring physical exertion. Therefore, his character's search for the mushroom along the cliff, given its class limitations, was bound to fail eventually, no matter how hard it tried. He had made the wrong decision and, due to his error, his peace was lost. The adventure tied to that peace could no longer progress, it had reached its end, leaving him shocked. Even after some time had passed, the memory still lingered as a painful echo each time he thought about it. However, he was relieved that he could now gain something new and appreciate the sunset, knowing that the time had come. Suddenly, he heard a thunderous noise. A tree emerged from the ground and numerous flowers sprouted around it. He slowly approached while reflecting on the research he had conducted since that day. He had discovered many details about the Forsaken One quest, including the fact that the mission's item, the corpse finger mushroom, typically appeared on cliffs during twilight hours. Closing his eyes to focus, he conjured a shadow behind him. Known as the Shadow Hand, this was a basic ability of the Shadow Summoner, which allowed for the creation of a hand with limited physical capabilities. Despite its simplicity, it was useful in situations like these. He found the ability difficult to control and wondered if it was due to his inexperience. The Shadow Hand flew towards the mushroom, and even though his initial attempt missed, he persisted in his efforts. He reminded himself to concentrate, aiming to secure the mushroom in one swift move. His plan was to carefully guide the Shadow Hand, apply just the right amount of pressure to grasp the mushroom, and then pull. He managed to seize the mushroom, pulling it swiftly and forcefully. The Shadow Hand then retreated, drawing nearer to his face to reveal the mushroom. He was relieved to see his plan had worked. Suddenly, he noticed a light shining from above, causing him to wonder if something had just gleamed. A system notification appeared, stating that the perception had been activated and the hidden adventure, Masterless Pocket Watch, had been activated as well. The notification also displayed Adventure 2-2 with a description that read, "The pocket watch was abandoned at the lowest peak of the sharp stone mountains and in its deepest recesses. The eagle symbol engraved on its surface suggests the item has a rich history. It is possible someone in the free city of Kongori might know more about the pocket watch." His mission was to find someone who knows about the pocket watch, and it had no time limit. He realized then that Kongori was situated near the sharp stone mountains. When he looked closely at the tree, he saw that there was a watch hanging at the end of the tree branch. He thought that if it hadn't been shining, he would have returned with just the mushroom. He moved his shadow hand toward it again, prompting the commenters to label him a greedy newbie. When his shadow hand drew near to the watch, the commenters questioned its relevance, and none of them had any knowledge of it. The shadow hand grasped the watch while the commenters debated whether anyone had written about it. Moments later, night fell. In his forsaken house, he was cooking on the stove and remained silent the whole time, wondering if he could truly trust Seol, as he had always despised baseless hope more than anyone else. Then, he remembered his sick mother on her bed. She had told him that they should all disappear because she didn't want to see a single thing. She spoke of the curse and her dying flesh afflicted by it, the detestable rock canine tribe, and all those disgusting creatures. She called him Male, saying that they should all disappear. Male couldn't nurture hope that the disease would be cured someday. So, instead of painting that futile hope, he thought it would be better to devise a treatment. That's why he began to read the books of the humans that the rock canine had hunted. Although it was initially hard for him to read due to the language barrier, he managed to learn the human language, thanks to the invitation tome his mother had left behind. As Male continued to accumulate knowledge, he began to see a potential treatment to save himself. However, his end seemed to be approaching faster than his salvation, so he knew he needed to make the medicine before his disease worsened. He needed a mushroom he had never seen before, one that only sprouted on cliffs. He wondered if begging the first human he had met for salvation had really been his best decision. Suddenly, he heard someone approaching his location. He immediately stood up, wondering if the human had returned or if it was a tribe member. Then he was shocked to see Seol, who appeared out of breath from running. Seol told Male that he had returned with the mushroom and that the disease was causing more pain than he had expected. He showed the mushroom to Male and asked if it was what he was looking for. Male, visibly shaken, confirmed that it was. He then bowed his head to Seol, blessing him and tearfully asking for his name. Seol smiled and introduced himself as Snowman, handing Male the mushroom. Male introduced himself and explained that his name meant Child of the Star. He promised to offer immediate help and declared that he would never forget the aid he had received from Snowman. Then the system displayed a message showing that he had saved the Forsaken One. As a reward, the Forsaken One would assist him. He had completed the mission. A moment later, in Male's house, the system notified him that he had recovered from the endemic rotten branch disease, permanently increasing his vitality by 2. The Forsaken One had also recovered from the same illness. Male assured him that he would provide help as promised, referring to him as his benefactor. Then, he asked if there was anything he wanted. The system displayed a notification indicating Male's intent to fulfill his promise and offer assistance. It encouraged careful thought before giving a response, offering several options. Tell Male of a plan to confront the rock canines head-on. Express doubt about facing the rock canines directly and inquire about an inside strategy. Ask Male to teach him witchcraft, or discuss rallying the outcasts against the rock canines, a leadership level 1 requirement. Given the recent annihilation of their party, he deemed the first option useless. Since he did not meet the requirements for the third and fourth options, he expressed his doubts about a head-on confrontation with the rock canines to Male, instead asking for a potential internal strategy. Male understood his concern and proposed a possible course of action. Meanwhile, in the rock canine tribe, trolls stood guard outside. He hid in a tree, pondering Male's words. The harvest festival of the rock canines was the best time to strike. Male explained that this festival was a sacrificial offering to the earth dragon, Tancred, whom the rock canines served. The unbreakable rule of the festival was that all tribe members must partake in a ritual at midnight, drinking from a large cauldron filled with boiled animal blood. Male then presented him with potions and suggested lacing the cauldron with their contents to aid his plan. When asked if he would be alright, Male queried whether he'd forgotten his mother's last words. Male declared that while his disappearance might happen later, he wished to partially fulfill his mother's last wish. Next, the system presented Adventure 2-3, Suppressed Revenge, which depicted Male's vengeance against his tribe. Male provided a nostrum to be mixed into the sacrifice pot at the rock canines harvest festival. The goal was to lace the festival cauldron with the nostrum before midnight, with a remaining time of 2 hours and 46 minutes. Afterward, Male left and the old hut disappeared in a sea of flames. Among its remains, Male retrieved the rotten branch disease, a medicine to be delivered to patients, and a book filled with many empty pages. He asked Male about the book. Male explained that it had always been his dream to become an archaeologist. He spoke of the vast world, full of endlessly unearthed secrets. His plan was to traverse this world and record these discoveries. Male then expressed his wish for him to punish the Rock Canine tribe's barbarism using the star of intelligence that he possessed. The system popped up, indicating that he had gained an aide, Male, the child of the star. Male's rank was heroic, and there was a possibility that he might appear during his adventures, offering help based on their rapport. He also received the achievement It's Lonely Being Alone and the title of Attractive Being. He smiled, thinking that the title was not too bad in the long run. He pulled out the drug, aware that he should begin using the nostrum. The red nostrum was for camouflage, and the blue one induced madness. He removed the lid from the red nostrum and drank it straight away. Once finished, he opened his mouth in disguise, but was surprised when he felt something. His entire body began to shake in pain, leaving him shocked. A moment later, the troll guard spotted something nearby and questioned the other troll about his presence there, reminding him he was not supposed to leave his post until after the harvest festival concluded. Seol, currently in a troll guise, apologized to the guards and assured them he would join them swiftly. The system indicated that he had now transformed into an idiotic troll for a day, and he was allowed to use the troll language and voodoo for that period. He was relieved to have resolved that issue and didn't need the voodoo at that moment. However, he knew that Troll Language 1 was absolutely necessary. He moved past the watchtower. His next step was to locate the cauldron and lace it with the Madness Nostrum. He remembered Male mentioning that the cauldron was located in the middle layer. He ventured into the tribe's territory, aware that the Rock Canines, who had conquered the peak, lived divided into 5 different factions. These factions only united when facing a significant threat, otherwise, they remained divided and continually waged war against each other. Due to this dynamic, the Rock Canines had 5 leaders, 1 from each generation. Shamans, representing each faction and its separate villagers, maintained discussions for the tribe as a whole. However, the current generation's heirs faced serious issues. Due to their lack of abilities, the once strong Rock Canine tribe was gradually declining. Given the Rock Canine's current dilemma, he believed he could execute his planned work effortlessly. A moment later, he reached the pot and looked at it, wondering if it contained animal blood. Then he took out the blue nostrum and gave it to the troll guarding the pot, prompting it to ask him what it was. He told the troll that he'd like to contribute some of the blood he'd collected to the cauldron, ones freshly acquired that day. However, the troll told him the blood from the sacrifice would be sufficient. He attempted to reason, but it angrily told him to leave. Nevertheless, he insisted it was the blood of the white horn arago and would undoubtedly be beneficial. The troll asked him if it truly was the white horn arago's blood. He replied affirmatively and requested permission to add it to the pot. The troll grabbed the nostrum, telling him it would convey his message, to which he bowed and expressed his gratitude. He knew that the Rock Canines believed if they offered valuables to Tancred, they would receive her blessing. White horn aragos are rare even within the Sharp Stone Mountains and are considered top-grade sacrificial offerings. The guard bowed to Sir Magada, telling him that a man wished to offer the blood of the white horn arago. Magada took the nostrum, removed its lid, and sniffed it for inspection. Then Magada confirmed its authenticity and ordered the guard to add it to the pot. Seol felt at ease knowing they couldn't detect the Madness Nostrum, camouflaged by Male with the blood of a white horn arago. After all, Male, the Forsaken One, hadn't earned his heroic rank for nothing. The guard troll poured the nostrum into the pot, and the system indicated that the Madness Nostrum had now mixed with the contents of the Harvest Festival's cauldron. Consequently, those who drank that blood would be engulfed in madness. Later, as midnight approached, Magada ordered everyone to raise their glasses. He told them that everything, the flesh, the blood, even plunder, was a gift from Earth's grace. He then ordered them to drink heartily, leaving no drop of that blood behind. They were to saturate the earth with more of it, following their Lord Tancred's way, the Rock Canine's tradition. The trolls cheered joyously for their Lord Tancred, drinking the blood while he spilled it onto the ground. He knew the trolls gathered there all belonged to the Rock Canine tribe, and he wondered if those seated on the side were their leaders. He recalled that Male had warned him about the reason the Rock Canines could persist through generations despite their dilemmas. The one who single-handedly wiped out the shamans of the previous generation, the troll born with the power of the mountains, the wisest and toughest troll in the history of Rock Canines, their tribal chief, Jamad.